fax machines. They were all the rage. 20 years ago, we were just learning about the marvels of emails and word processing, and we were just starting to hear about the internet and the information highway. I remember all those jokes about being roadkill and the information superhighway. And in 1994, Time magazine featured a cover story to explain the internet to readers. So in my mind, that wasn't long ago, but I guess now it was 20 years ago. And we've been talking about things like surfing the internet. And now, of course, the internet's part of our daily lives. We all have smartphones, and they're with us every day. So we recognize the critical role that they play in enabling our efficiency and maximizing our opportunities, also to allow people to develop their talents and to commercialize their innovations, because, of course, innovations without being able to pay for them is a fruitless exercise. So, and we know also that Nigeria has been at the forefront of taking advantage of this growing mobile communications and technologies sector. We know that Nigeria continues to make progress in increasing internet connectivity for its people to have access to this important venue. As the participants in this forum can attest, Nigeria is a fine example of how the internet is having a positive impact on, as well as in the developing world, as well as in the advanced economies, in connecting people and businesses, consumers and products, buyers and sellers, and even as a social network. You know, our families and friends. I was just talking about how my daughter uses Skype to talk to her grandparents, something that even when I joined the Foreign Service about 20 years ago would have been unheard of. Calling my parents once a week was a luxury from Lagos, which is where I was assigned almost 20 years ago, and now my daughter can speak to her grandparents almost anytime she wants using the internet. So this is really something that we want to see entrepreneurs be able to capitalize on more and more. Creating new apps to help others improve their productivity, to accelerate their routine functions, and to create their businesses. We're also finding that people are entertaining as well. So we're reaching markets, audiences in all areas of the country and indeed in all of the world. With the enormous impact the internet has had on our lives, we share responsibility to be good stewards, to ensure that we adopt practices that maintain our values, of course. As a community, we have a shared challenge to promote global policies to help others have access to the internet, especially, again, as I said, those in the developing world. And we need to preserve the internet's openness by ensuring people can freely obtain information as well as express their opinions. At the same time, we have to prevent misuse of the internet by cyber attacks, and also, of course, intellectually and identity and intellectual property theft. So there are challenges. We all acknowledge them. I'm sure we all know what they are. But I think also working together, we can meet them. The internet connects our societies. It creates shared prosperity, and it facilitates the exchange of goods and services. So I hope everyone here today looks at how they can be a force to enable technology to transform their society and their economy in a positive way. I know the government of Nigeria highly supports the use of information communication technology, or ICT as we call it, as a means to promote improve all spheres of life and also to develop the economy. So I hope that today's speaker and discussion session will open avenues to exchange success stories, to exchange best practices, to inspire each other, and to be a physical network here, so that your ideas and successes can be tools to shaping the future. So thank you.
Welcome everyone this morning. It's my honor to introduce the guest speaker for today, who is Mr. Sherwood Neiss, also known as Woody. He's a principal and a co-founder of a group called Crowdfund Capital Advisors, which is a consulting firm that uses crowdfunding methodology to help professional investors and institutions, including local, state, and national governments, get together, as well with NGOs, to build crowdfunding ecosystems to support innovation, strengthen businesses, and create new jobs. Mr. Neiss has co-authored many reports about crowdfunding, and he's indeed one of the experts in the field. For example, he co-authored a report that was called Crowdfunding Exemption Framework, which became the basis for a law passed in the United States Congress, the Jobs Act, to legalize the equity-based and lending-based crowdfunding. So he's worked closely in the United States with the White House, with the U.S. Senate, and the House of Representatives on this legislation, and he has also testified before the U.S. Congress. He also leads the fight to ensure that investors are protected, while at the same time entrepreneurs have access to the capital they need to start and grow their companies. In addition, he has worked with the World Bank and co-authored a report that was entitled Crowdfunding's Potential for the Developing World, and he's also the co-author of Crowdfund Investing for Dummies. So I think that's the book I'm going to read. You might have seen him on TV. He's been on MSNBC, CNN, and Bloomberg. He's also been interviewed by the leading financial magazines in the world, including Fortune, Forbes, Wall Street Journal. So without further ado, I'd like to present Mr. Sherwood Neiss, who also holds an MBA in International Finance. Mr. Neiss.
Thank you. Good morning from Santiago, Chile. I take it it's around noon or a little bit in the afternoon there. Our topic, it sounds like, is technology and the internet and how we get in front of it and not behind it. I think having the ability for me to do this live chat from Santiago, which is not even my home, I live in Miami, Florida, and share my knowledge and expertise with you all the way over there is truly a feat of technology and where we not only have how far we've come, but where we're going as a global society. And it goes to show how we can get a group of people together and now start collaborating and making new discoveries. So as you heard, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not a lobbyist, even though I went to Washington, D.C. and changed the law. I'm not a lawyer, even though I learned a ton about law from running and growing a 3-time Inc. 500 company. I was the CFO of that company, so I learned a lot about how important finance is. So if you are an entrepreneur, and I speak to many entrepreneurs, I always focus them on the key thing that I think is most important about business, and that's cash. Because if you think about cash at the center of a business, it's the blood of any business, and you need it to fund the company, you need it to pay your expenses, you need it to pay your employees. Without cash, you can't do anything. People are often focused on sales or often focused on customers. And I say, sales bring in cash. Customers buy your product that lead to cash. But cash is the most critical thing that a business needs. And so when you're thinking about technology today, and you're thinking about ways in which you can facilitate growing your business or living your lives, it really comes down to technology and how we use it. So just by a show of hands, how many of you have a phone? All right. How many of you have a smartphone? All right. We're all on the same page here. So just as an example, this is how I live my life, okay? I wake up, my phone wakes me up. Nothing new about that. I check my email because I have email on my phone. So I'm interacting with everyone I know on a daily basis. I see the weather. I see when it's going to rain instantaneously around me in Miami because I ride a bicycle for the most part, and getting caught in the rain on a bike is just a terrible thing. I have social networks that I'm connected with on my phone, which is Twitter and Facebook. I tweet everything that goes on as I'm traveling around the world so I can interact with other followers that follow me. And this is a group of not only friends, but a larger group of peers that I have a relationship. Wherever I'm going, I have my maps, and I'm looking at my maps to find out where I need to go on the ground. If I'm flying, we have apps that have the flight information, so I can see what gate I'm leaving from, what time my plane's leaving, anything and everything there. If I'm sitting around not reading my email, I've got news apps that feed me instantaneously what's going on. I've got LinkedIn on here so I can network with my social friends. Then breaking it down, we've got the collaborative economy on the phone. Technology, they're in what they do in their daily lives. We now have a mechanism to meet that supply with demand. So I use tools like Uber, which is a car sharing service, and Lyft. And if I need to get a ride to the airport, for instance, I click on Lyft or Uber on my phone. I see where the closest driver is to me. I click accept. They show up. When they come to my apartment, I get a message saying your driver is 1 minute away. I go downstairs. The car is waiting for me. I hop in the car, go to the airport. I get out. I thank the driver thanks me. There's no cash that takes place. I click accept, done, and money is transferred from my bank account to his bank account. All seamlessly, all without exchanging cash, all securely. This is the world that we're living in now. Everything is happening on our phones. Technology has enabled this. When I'm working with clients, I can keep track of the time and make it billable. There isn't pretty much anything I can't do. Well, there is a couple things I can't do. This won't work out for me at the gym. So I still have to get on the treadmill and do my own running. If someone can make that app, I'd really appreciate it because it would save me a lot of time. But it does record how much exercise I've done, the output of that. It can send a report to my trainer to let him know if I'm staying compliant with my schedule. And I've got my music that I can listen to. By the way, I hurt my neck recently when I was doing all this traveling that I do for work. I had to go to the doctor. I'm in physical therapy. My physical therapy is on my phone. I go through the exercises, it records the time, shows me everything I need to do. At the end, I select whether it was hard, medium, or easy for me to do. And then it sends a report to my chiropractor to make sure that I was 100% compliant with my workout routine. These phones, and what they were talking about at the beginning, which was a new way to use the internet, which is really was getting information, has now moved to that communication mechanism that we were talking about. And now we're in this collaborative economy where anything and everything you can think about. So when you're thinking about your businesses, you should barely be thinking about a couple things. One, what's the cash model surrounding this? Because without cash, there is no business. And two, how am I using the way we live our lives to integrate into these phones so that I can have a broader audience? That's the most critical thing, I think, when you're trying to figure out how to grow a business. So let's talk about the progression of the capital markets in this technology phase. Like they were saying, I'm an entrepreneur. I started a business that flavored medicines for children so they're more compliant. Our company was based right outside of Washington, D.C. We grew it from one pharmacy to 40,000. We did 3 rounds of financing, so I used my personal savings. I borrowed money from friends and family. Anything and everything that you do in the United States is copied around the world, meaning if you're starting a business, you're usually starting it with your own money. If you're lucky, you might get a grant. Outside of that, you have to fund it somehow, and that requires maybe friends or family or going to people that are traditional financiers. And that way of raising money in the capital markets has barely shifted. Okay, we used to go to banks and borrow money from them, but usually they don't lend to startups or small businesses that don't have cash coming in. Okay, so there's a challenge there. But you could have a good idea. You could have a great network of friends, and if you did have a network of friends, that's who you went to raise money from. Now we've got these phones, we've got technology, and we've seen something emerge over the past 5 years, and it's been pretty fascinating. It's this thing called crowdfunding. And if it hadn't been for the collapse of the global markets in 2008, I don't know if this really would have taken off the way it did. So the world is familiar with the fact that we saw the global markets everywhere collapse. The banks stopped lending, the money wasn't flowing. Entrepreneurs suffered the most because they couldn't get the capital they needed to innovate and start businesses and hire people. By the way, if you can't start a business, you can't hire people. Those people create economic prosperity because they're spending, and that's the way you get out of recessions, is by employing more people. Sustainable jobs, really. So, with the capital markets not functioning properly, we needed to come up with a way to replace what they were doing with alternative methods. And so we saw websites called crowdfunding websites pop up where people were putting up web pages saying, I have an idea for a music band, or I want to raise money for a food truck, or anything and every idea. And they would put out a description of their idea, how much money they needed to raise, a video about themselves showing the true passion that they had for executing on this vision, and then they'd say, I need $50,000. $25,000 is going to go to the truck. $10,000 is going to go to buying food. Whatever the cost of the product is going to be, they would put that up there for the potential donors to look into. And miraculously enough, people started giving. And why were they giving? Because we're connected by these phones. We're connected by the social network now. And so people didn't have to rely on their core, immediate group of friends. Now you could actually reach your social network. And a social network is friends, family, but it's also community. So you might be involved in a community of people that are entrepreneurs and join groups on LinkedIn for entrepreneurs. Or you might be someone that, like me, that works out a lot, and so I'm very much into the exercise community, and I join groups that are focused on this thing called CrossFit. And so I have these broader communities that aren't necessarily connected, but they're communities of mine and of people of shared interest, which is the critical thing. Technology, communities, shared interest, how we start pulling this together in what they call the Internet of Things to enable new ways to do old things. And so the new way to do the old form of fundraising is crowdfunding. And with the donation and perks crowdfunding, we saw that emerge rapidly, super, super rapidly. And people started to give money to other people with causes just to be a part of it because they were part of that community. They knew the person and they believed in the person. They thought the idea was, pretty cool, might as well give it a shot. And they wanted to be part of something that was really bigger. And the crowdfunding went from zero to a multi-billion-dollar industry in just a few short years. That's when we saw the opportunity for this in the capital markets. So in donation and perks, so there's 4 kinds of crowdfunding. Let me step back for a second, step back. So what I was talking about, the initial types of crowdfunding are donation or perks. So donation, people are just giving their money to other people that have a cause. I would encourage all of you to go check out Indiegogo or Kickstarter, if you already haven't, to see how people are raising money on these technology platforms. The other 2 types of crowdfunding are debt and equity crowdfunding, and they're really securities-related crowdfunding. Now, one of the things I learned early on, which I was shocked about, is securities are the most highly regulated activity globally. You would think it would be drugs or arms or something that the media, that we see in the media all the time. It's the buying and selling of securities because that's where most money is transacted globally. And it's highly, highly regulated. So you can't just start a company and say, hey, Joe, I'm starting a business. Why don't you loan me $100,000 and I'll pay you back in 10 years and here's a note. You can't just say, Joe, why don't you invest that $100,000 in my business and I will give you 10% of my business. There's rules and regulation that every country has regarding who can buy shares in businesses, who can sell shares in businesses, and if you break those rules, sometimes the sentences are as much as going to jail, because you can defraud people. And that's really what led to the Great Recession, at least in the United States, is people were selling fictitious shares in companies to people that they didn't know, and people believed that those companies existed, and when the curtain came down, $20 billion of value, which at the time was incredibly huge, disappeared, and tons of people lost their money. So globally, we came up with ways in which to protect investors. But there was no technology to really enforce it. There were individuals. And so we ruled out people that were not rich from really investing in the private markets unless you wanted to buy shares that were on a public exchange like the NASDAQ or the Dow. We also said companies can only raise money if they do a public offering on these exchanges. But if you wanted to do a private offering, they made exemptions. So they said they carved out ways in which you can raise capital. And they said you can do it only if you really know the people. You can't put an ad on the television. You can't mail someone. Of course, the internet didn't exist at the time. You have to have a pre-existing relationship, and these people need to be qualified investors. And in the United States, that was the definition of accredited, which really comes down to a very wealthy person, mainly a rich person that makes over $200,000 a year or has a net worth over $1 million. The world copied many of these rules. Not standard, so the credit is lower, but it still keeps out people that aren't wealthy from investing in the private capital markets. That's when we went to Washington, D.C., and we said, listen, for 80 years, when the capital markets were working, that was great. But it's not working now because we can't raise money from our friends and family. The banks aren't lending to startups. The private equity world is not lending right now. So there's this thing called crowdfunding that is technology-based, and the beauty about it is it brings this entire process of raising capital online. So again, technology is the conduit to allow where we're going in the world to take place today. This is all part of, again, that Internet of Things. And what it does is it forces us to have standards put in place where we didn't before. So we went to DC and said, listen, let's create a new law that will allow startups and small businesses to go out and raise money on the social network, so Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, using those communities I was telling you about before that we have an affinity with, we share something with. So let us go to those networks and allow them to invest in our businesses, not donate. We think people give to money because they want to feel good about something, but they invest in something that they believe in. And the regulator's biggest concern is, how do we protect investors? How do we provide transparency to everything that's going on so if someone takes off with someone's money, we can hold them accountable? And the answer to that, again, is technology. Technology has turned out to be so powerful because it creates what's known as a digital footprint. So if we're raising money on these crowdfunding platforms, we have people upload information about their business, a business plan, how they're going to use that money, the type of securities they're offering. So when I say type of securities, some of you might be thinking, I don't even know what that means. Again, raising money, highly regulated, you are going to need a lawyer to do this. All of this is in a system that is regulated, and the lawyers really help you write these documentations. When you upload them to these websites, you now have the information that regulators want investors to have access to so they can make decisions. So that's one of the critical key components, is transparency, standardization, and accountability, because we've got information that's put up there. The platforms themselves are going an extra step. So now we're using technology to verify that people are who they are. In the United States, before you can raise any money, you have to do a background check on all the individuals. So we use data tables and pre-existing information that's out there to verify the person is real. Okay, that's the very first check. If they fail that check, if they've come back with a slate that says they are poor on their payments, they have a record of stealing money or something bad about them, they won't even be allowed to go up on one of these websites. They're immediately kicked out of the system. If they pass that, they upload all their documentation. They are then allowed to invite people only to the platform. You can't say, hey, give me a call. Let's talk about this. That's out of the question, because that's how fraud can take place. So we told the regulators we're going to direct all the traffic to one central location where all the communication can be recorded, so you can have access to all the communication that took place. So if anything went wrong, you can see a digital footprint of it. So we send everyone to these crowdfunding websites. We call them crowdfunding portals. It's all online, where you take a look at these campaigns and you look at it. And you can decide whether or not you want to invest in it. Maybe you watch the video. Maybe you have a question that about the video or how they're going to use the money. Everyone seems to have questions about it. Are they really the right entrepreneur to do this? Do they have the experience that they say they have? Now there's 2 technology advances that are used, 3 actually, to help help investors make better decisions. First, ask questions in an open forum. So imagine that you, as a group of individuals sitting in this room right now, wanted to ask a question, type it there, I would respond on the screen, and that is recorded in digital history. So that question has, now they can read the answer to that question and help guide their decision-making process. We can do video recordings like this, where I record the latest update of what's happening in the company, and you can watch it. And these updates are also recorded and kept in a history log, so regulators or anyone can come back and see it. Then we use those crazy rating mechanisms. So if you've been on any of the websites like Amazon, if it's popular there, or wherever you buy things, everyone loves to rate things. Thumbs up, thumbs down, You know, good job, scale of 1 to 10, 10 great, 1 0. The more people that do the thumbs up, the more quantitative analysis we're getting in there. All of that added together helps guide people's decisions. All those things, even though it's a thumbs up, is a technology advance. And all of this collectively is helping us make smarter, more informed, more transparent decisions. If everything's going smooth up to this point and we decide to invest in this, we have our bank accounts, which are usually attached on our phones, connected to the crowdfunding platform. So we can say, you know what, I'll invest $100 in Woody's business, or loan Woody $100 for 6% interest, and he can pay that back over 3 years. And the crowd comes in, individuals in the crowd making their own decision of what they want to do, who they want to invest in. And if you hit 100% of your funding target, this is a caveat that we have in the US legislation, that you have to hit 100% of your funding target, you get that money. If you don't hit 100% of your funding target, the money that was committed, it sits in an escrow account, so it can never be touched by the entrepreneur. It can only be touched by a third-party agent. Even the crowdfunding platform doesn't touch it. They act as a completely set spread. So if the crowdfunding platform goes out of business, that money can always go back to the investors. But if you get funded, you hit it, goes from the escrow account to the investors and to the entrepreneur, and then the entrepreneur can do what they need to do. So what have we done with these platforms? Well, we've taken an old way of raising money, which is really friends and family financing. We saw how technology, and we live our lives today through these social networks, allow us to go out to them and say, if you believe in me, if you love me, if you think I can do what I'm going to do, if this is a product or service you would buy, then why don't you invest in my business? We've created a technology platform that allows them to actually get all the information they need to decide if that's what they want to do, and then transfer that cash to the entrepreneur. This is fundamentally going to change the way the world operates. The capital markets publicly everywhere in the world, and I'm in Santiago, Chile right now working with the Ministry of Finance on this. It's no different in Santiago than it was in the United States. We've been in 30 countries all over the world, Asia, the Middle East, Africa. We're currently working on a project in Nairobi, Kenya. Everyone, if you look at the continuum of money that companies need, you've got all this money over here that big corporations can get whenever they want. They're huge. They have access to the public markets, the capital markets, because they're already generating cash. And people like to invest in companies that are generating cash because they know that they can hopefully eventually pay it back. We're the ones that suffer at this end of the spectrum because we're small, our cash payments aren't staggered, we're trying to invest our cash into the business to grow, and it makes it more challenging. On this end of the market, globally, there's been a funding void, and it's been very hard for entrepreneurs to get the capital that they need to grow their businesses, to hire people, to invest in their businesses, and that's where we found that this technology and this solution can come into play globally. So it's been exciting to take this idea and talk literally about how these phones are transforming our lives, talk about if you understand this, if you understand how we socially interact, then you can see how we can look at old ways of living our lives and layer on technology to do new things. And in doing so, we can bring efficiency to the market, transparency to the market, and accountability to the market. So let's talk about those for a second. Efficiency. This thing that I'm telling you about, crowdfunding, companies can go out and hit their target usually in about 3 weeks as shortest to 3 months. The campaigns themselves don't last forever, because if there's not enough interest in them after 3 months, they're not going to get funded anyway, which is great because before people would go out and they'd have an open raise and they'd just be raising money, and it could go on for a year. When I raised money for Flavor X, did 3 rounds of financing. Every single time, it took me a full year to close. That's a year of me taking all the time away from my business. But with technology now, I can take the time to upload all this information, hit a very broad group of investors right from my computer that I have a relationship with, and they can decide to invest, and most of these transactions close within less than 3 months. So major efficiency in the market. Then we've got accountability. Before, if I was doing a deal in a closed room, I would shake your hand, we'd sign a piece of paper. No one else would see this information other than you and me. Well, regulators really want accountability. They really want to see that there was a paper trail to what went on, and that if I'm not trying to take advantage of you. By uploading all of this information to the internet, we've created a digital footprint. And that digital footprint is so important because it's technology that allows us to go back and see who looked at a document, how long did they look at a document, did they sign that document, when did they sign it. And so we've got accountability built into the system on both ends, which is good because if anything goes wrong, you need to identify those people. And then we've got the money that is just coming in where it wouldn't come in before. So we've got capital flowing. That's the most critical thing. We've now used technology to solve a problem, which is access to capital. So the true opportunity for this is figuring out how we in the United States can help you over there get capital from the diaspora community in the United States or people that you might know in other countries globally but share an affinity with you. And these are big challenges, and it requires that we have collaboration at a global level. So my business partners and I are out traveling the world right now trying, one, to get countries to update their securities regulations to enable this online mechanism of changing money. But two, is we need our governments to say, if we've got these standards that have a transparency, accountability, and efficiency, they'll regulate these platforms, and the securities regulators monitor them, then why don't we have agreements that allow us to say, if we have matching standards, we should be able to allow investors in the United States to invest in entrepreneurs in Nigeria or entrepreneurs in Korea. So that we've got the transparency and accountability built in, because that's the most important thing for efficiency. There are risks in all of this. It's not a 100% guarantee. I'm waiting to see who's the person that's going to fool everyone and take off with some money. It happens everywhere. It's just a reality of life. But the fact is all fraud that's been tried to be perpetrated on crowdfunding platforms so far to date has been discovered within 24 hours. Why? Because a social network is an insanely powerful thing. And if you're inviting your broader social network to these crowdfunding platforms, chances are you are friends with someone, or maybe you were a former friend with someone that you might not have defriended or removed from your social network that got your solicitation. And if they click on that solicitation, it takes them to the website. Remember that question and answer thing I was telling you about? They could easily write in there, this is a scam. So if they write this is a scam and give some identifying information and people start doing that thumbs up, you would think, hopefully, that other people reading it are going to go, well, why is this a scam? And start questioning the validity of this. That is how all the fraud to date has been disrupted on crowdfunding platforms. There's a guy that put up a campaign to sell some beef jerky of all things, and had a beautiful, I mean, talk about slick. This guy spent time and energy putting a beautiful campaign together, and someone went in there and said, I know this guy, he's not real, he took these pictures from so-and-so site, I've seen him do this before, and the campaign was pulled down within 24 hours. People had committed money to the campaign before one person discovered it was a fraud. But that's the beauty of technology now. Everyone can be a reporter on Twitter, but now anyone can be a policeman on a crowdfunding platform. And that's the efficiency that we're building into this. Best practices are disclose, 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 put as much information out there as possible. Use technology to help you do this. There are business planning programs that can help you fill in the blanks if you've never put a business plan together. There are accounting companies and programs that are creating templates that you can use. So if you've never put a financials together, you can do that. Encourage you. The most important thing that you can do if you want to learn anything about crowdfunding is educate yourself. The World Bank report we wrote is a great way to get started because it's sort of like a Bible rates the different kinds and what regulators are doing. I would encourage you to get involved in the process with your regulators and have them update these securities laws to the internet age. I would read books about it. If you don't want to spend any money on this, and I think this is a trick that I tell people all the time, go to Amazon.com and type crowdfund investing for dummies and click on the preview of the book. The first 80 pages of the book are free. You don't have to pay the $14.95 for the book, although I'd love it if you did, but don't worry. You can read those first 80 pages, which is what all issuers, aka entrepreneurs, need to know about this for free, and learn everything that you need to know. The second part is about protecting investors and what investors need to know. That's so I would really much encourage the education side of this if you wanted to go down the path. I do want to open it to questions from you guys, because I'm going to have to run shortly to the Ministry of Finance. But I just want to go over a few things. This technology is living by these things. We need to integrate them into the capital markets. We need to get the people that control the way we live our lives, the regulators and the policymakers, to understand that it's in their best interest to craft policy that enables entrepreneurs to access capital, because you guys are the job creators. Small businesses create the majority of jobs in the world. And if anyone is truly concerned about making their countries a better place, you should start with the entrepreneurs, because they have the biggest chance to create the businesses and innovate, by the way. Big companies find it incredibly hard to innovate because they've got so many people that they have to ask for permission. By just focusing the attention, the technology, and the capital on small businesses, they can iterate faster, they can build businesses faster, they can hire to actually make things better for everyone, in the sense that it could have offshoots for peace. Think about it this way. When people don't have jobs, they're not happy. They're sitting around. People want to be productive. If there's one thing I've learned in the 30 countries I've been to, if you just want to be a productive person. They don't want to sit around and do nothing. That's boring. Give them the opportunity to do something. Give them the ability to say, I've got an idea, or join someone with an idea. By doing that, we can get people off the streets, active, productive, and who knows, maybe we can create a peaceful global environment if we do this right. So with that, why don't I open it up to questions that you might have, and leave it at that.
Round of applause for Woody. I don't think it works. I don't think it works. But Woody, thank you very much. Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Okay. So we'd like to say thank you to Woody. My name is Bankole Olaritaba. I run an incubator, a technology business incubator, actually, the only one based here in Abuja. And I can relate with everything Woody has said. And to trace it back a little bit, a few steps back to the idea of crowdfunding. If many of us know the concept of crowdsourcing, we will know how crowdfunding is also possible. By crowdsourcing, that means you need to gather as much information or as much whatever you need from different people from different places, and that same pattern also reflects to crowdfunding. So with crowdfunding, it's a lot easier for you to not easier, but it gives you an alternative to having to go to banks. We know the issue of banks, and we can hear what you said too. They also have the same problem also with banks lending to startups. So we're not the only ones in this. We've got questions, comments, anything else you'd like to put to this. But for me, I would like to add that most of what he has said in terms of the use of technology and how technology is helping to build businesses, helping to build ideas. For most of us in the media, most of us in the NGO sector, most of us that are entrepreneurs, well, I think I'm a mixture of everything. We can see how the use of technology has helped to change the way we live, the way we interact, the way we get information, just the same thing he said. I do almost the same thing. Wake up in the morning with my phone. I don't buy newspaper anymore, even though they keep saying we have to help the vendors stay alive. But I get all my information online. Once I wake up, I get information from Nigeria, from South Africa, from US, wherever my interests are. I get every information that I need. And it's a lot easier for me also to connect with people. For the incubator that we run here in Abuja, we've got connection with almost every incubator in Africa, and we've never met them before. But then we have done a few projects together, from Nairobi to South Africa to Rwanda to as far as Egypt to Tunisia. So you keep connecting with as much people, and some way somehow somebody somewhere will meet you somewhere and say, oh, you're the guy from this place, and you've never met before. Even when we went to Demo Africa in Lagos a few weeks back, I met a few people that I met online, and it was sort of, hey, guy, I know you. And he said, no, this is my first time in Nigeria. I said, oh, yeah, sure. But, I mean, Twitter these days, when you see someone, you say you know them because you've probably been talking with them on Twitter and all that. So it was easy for us to reconnect and also share experiences and also find some form of common grounds to how we could do business together. And so you see organizations like Hook Me Up Dinner in South Africa, who just launched in Nairobi, also thinking of coming to Nigeria, and they've already contacted us saying that they've seen how our digital footprints have been online, and they'd like us to do the same thing here in Nigeria. So the use of technology also has seen how we can help to develop non-governmental organizations in terms of resources, in terms of crowdfunding. I think NGOs will benefit a lot in this concept of crowdfunding. And that is because if you're being accountable for what you do and you're able to show that what you're doing really makes a lot of sense, and you need a lot of people also to fund it. People can fund out of their pocket. And that's because you've got a project. You have to also find the method of having to put it online. I go to Indiegogo, I go to Kickstarter, I see some of the weirdest of ideas that people just want to fund. You can call them weird, you can call them stupid, you can call them annoying, but still, they get funding. Some just need as little as $5,000, and they get people giving them as much dollars as that. So I think we should all try and leverage on this kind of concept together. Okay.
Because he has to leave.
Yeah.
5 minutes. I just want to make sure.
So if you've got a question for Woody,
good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mickey. I have a question for Mr. Woody. The question is, listening to you, I'm so happy that crowdfunding, technology, and entrepreneurs are like Sesame twins, or let me say 3 people connected together with the benefit of technology, and the crowdfunding can really work very well. And then transparency coming, accountability is there. Now, digital footprint that you mentioned, digital history, how secure a digital footprint, digital history from scammers? Because people will not do it, contribute to it, and then some scammers then go about and wipe it off, and then the history is not there again. How can we convince people that the digital history can guarantee that history will be there, so that if anything happens, we can go and do the background check of any investment that investors have done? Thank you very much, Mr. Williams.
So the question, I'll repeat it, is how secure is the information that is stored online so that someone doesn't take off with it?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, a couple things. First, it is the internet. The internet is an open domain. We do things in crowdfunding to create what's known as gates and doors to protect information. So on these platforms, you have to register. And you have to disclose information about yourself to register. So if you register for this information, you're going through these websites. The information itself is stored in what's called a data room. So these sites can record the users that went into that data room, which documents they looked at, which documents they printed. So we actually have a track record and accountability of who's seen what and who's printed what. So if someone were to take an idea and run with it, then we could probably see that what they did, and we could go after them. Now, I'll just tell you anecdotally a couple things. One, if you're that worried about your idea and someone stealing it, don't do anything with it. Don't talk about it. Clearly don't go on the internet with it. Just do it yourself, okay? Good luck, by the way. Good luck with that. Okay? The reality is, and I'll share a story with you. The company that I started flavored medicines for children, okay? We worked with flavoring manufacturers. They came up with flavors. We had a formulary, and you would follow the formulary, and you put the flavors into the liquid medicines as prescribed. This is not rocket science. This is not rocket science. We had a passion to do what we wanted to do, and it was about our ability to execute, okay? Passion and execution are what building a business is about. It's not finding a good idea and replicating it. Those people fail. We all might have seen the movie The Social Network. That is an anomaly. The fact that someone can take someone else's idea and execute on it because they have a bigger passion than you do with your idea does not happen. The reality is your idea will die a death because you refuse to share it, more so than if you go out there and take the risk of putting that information up there through a secure network and trying to raise money that way. And the other thing I would tell you to do is, if you've got technology that needs to be protected, go to the lawyers. Get patent protection, get IP protection. Do the traditional ways of protecting things don't change. Go down that path. But I would never encourage an entrepreneur not to use these new technology means just because they're afraid of someone stealing their idea. It doesn't happen. It just, there's a billion more businesses that get started by people using this than people running off with someone else's idea.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Timmy. I want to really appreciate the knowledge we've gotten from this crowdfunding. I just want to quote Mr. Woody from what he said earlier. He said, investors like to invest in startups that generate cash. Now, my question is this, like, if your idea is not about generating cash, it's about like maybe intellectual property kind of like in services like that, how do you convince an investor to like, put their investment into it? Just for an example, like if Mark Zuckerberg is supposed to be in this gathering now and he's coming up with something like, I have an idea about Facebook now, and based on that statement that because it's not going to generate cash physically, how do you like try to convince an investor that, yeah, you have an idea that about young people by now are connected to, but then if you go back like maybe 2004 thereabouts, like with such idea about crowdfunding now? So that's just my question. Thank you.
So let me repeat to make sure I heard it properly. How do you, if you have an idea that is not a tangible outcome, it's not something that is already producing cash, how do you get funding for that using crowdfunding? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Here's the sad truth. Just because crowdfunding is here, again, the rules of the game don't change. Investors, smart investors, look for a team, and they look for their ability to execute, and they look for a product that they can see, touch, and feel. The crowd is pretty much worse than a group of venture capitalists because someone in there.
Out. Yeah?
It's frozen. He'll reconnect.
Okay, let me just try to
Reconnect.
say that. Part of what you're saying is that it's still the same thing you'll find when you're people normally. Is it back?
I'm here.
Okay.
We lost you.
Okay. I don't know where. I'll just start. I'll summarize again. People don't like to invest in ideas. The crowd is very discerning. They're very critical. You need to have a proof of concept. You need to show them the true outcome. So if it's a service, you should have that service up and running and show that there are customers that have purchased that service. Then you go to a campaign and you say, this is my service. Here are customers that have purchased it and why. And people can call those customers to see it and they can make a decision. but people do not invest in ideas. They just don't. Everybody knows that an idea is an idea, and it's nothing without execution. I often get on the stage and say an idea without execution is a hallucination. The reality of it ever coming to fact is far and few between. Investors know this more than anyone else. So I would encourage you to have a proof of concept, a prototype, a customer, and preferably cash when you go out for a crowdfunding.
Okay. Anybody? Okay.
So afternoon, everyone. My name is Habib Makaido. I have one quick question, actually. You said when you try and validate, the entrepreneurs, the first move is trying to use social media networks, and you gave an example. So if someone came up and said, this guy has done this before, it's a fraud, how do you validate those information you get from other people on the entrepreneurs?
How do you validate who the individuals are?
Yeah.
How do you validate the claims against the entrepreneurs? So if someone is saying this guy is a fraud, I've seen it on another website, like you said, how do you validate that claim, that information?
What if it's
Right. That's a very good point. And so what we've seen is we've seen either the people making the claims state how they know the person, give links to examples that can prove what they're saying, because the crowd doesn't necessarily believe everything that they say. There's a lot of people that just like to say negative things, but if you're going to trash someone's reputation, someone else, because people can, what you do is you're starting a line of thinking. So you have your question, you've got your response. Most of these things have a thumbs up or thumbs down, so people might like the question. Someone might say, prove that to me, and that creates a chain of that person having to respond. So if they say, I don't agree with what you're saying, and the person that made that claim doesn't respond, most likely people are going to see, well, this person said, prove it. The guy that had that claim couldn't come in or came in with weaker information or no links. That's how, so you're using the technology to vet the people all along the line to see if they're saying what they're saying. And it's how you do that. We encourage people all the time to provide links to their claims, because that's how you can validate things more often than not.
Okay. Michael.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Michael Ike. My question is straightforward. This crowdfunding is nice for everybody, but being that more than 80% of people in mostly Africa, Nigeria, don't have access to internet, how do they participate in this crowdfunding?
Yeah.
I couldn't hear properly.
Okay, I say that given that crowdfunding works best over the internet, however, most of the people in Nigeria, or at least a good percentage, over 50%, do not have access to the internet. So how can they participate in this crowdfunding?
That's a great question. So how do people that don't have access to the internet participate in crowdfunding? There's several things you can do. The most important thing I would tell people to do is go look for incubators and accelerators, co-working spaces that are in your communities. So what you want to do is you want to find people in the traditional ecosystem of the startup world that will have access to the internet. And I'd go in there, I'd apply to be part of their program, and get them to help you with these crowdfunding campaigns and get access that way. Because if you don't have access to the internet, you're right, it's going to be a problem. So you need to see who in the startup ecosystem is around me. How do I get involved with them? If they aren't on crowdfunding, who else is, and who can help me do what I need to do? I think I've got time for one more question, and then I have to head to the Ministry of Finance here.
Okay, good afternoon. I want to still take us back one step to the issue of security and validation. My name is Ize, by the way. On the internet, on Twitter especially, we had an issue where somebody took out a well-known blogger, and this person was able to bring people on board his thinking. But at the end of the day, okay, Google disabled the blog, and in 24 hours it restored the blog. But this person built his case that everything seemed and looked valid. But at the end of the day, it just was somebody who was being vindictive. That was what he said. That he was trying to get her attention, she wasn't giving him attention, and he brought down Linda Ikeji for 24 hours. Now, as much as you've given us, you've told us some checklists that can go into it, I still have an issue with when you have vindictiveness in play like this, because one, you would have brought down somebody's idea, shattered his own his or her own belief in himself, and then you come back to say, okay, I mean, you bring down an idea in 24 hours. Is there any continued, say, investigation around that to be able to restore if a claim is proven false on the crowdfunding platform, that is?
I don't have any examples where someone has said something about a false claim and we needed to restore a reputation. I would hope that given people's social networks and the engagement that we have in these social networks, that if someone were to make a false claim on there, the other people that are friends, because when you type something, everyone gets an alert that there's been an update on the page, that this would allow other people to come in and disagree with that claim. So it's how you use crowdsourcing, how you use the collaboration to both bring down and discredit. I haven't, if I find an example, I am more than happy to send that to you. I do have a couple things I want to say. I think it's great that you are all in this room listening to this type of thing. It is the future of where we are going. I would encourage you to become as active as possible in doing whatever can be done to bring technology to facilitate the way you're living your lives and how the capital markets there are functioning. I also want to give a huge kudo to the embassy and the State Department there for organizing events like this, because this is happening globally. Those guys are busy. They got a billion things going on. The fact that they want some silly entrepreneur like me to speak to you, I think it speaks volumes of how they're focused not just on United States. Okay, they are focused on what is good for all of us. So I want to commend them for seeking me out to share my insight with you, because I think this truly represents what we are all trying to accomplish as a global society.
Woody, just before you go, can you just give us 2 or 3 crowdfunding sites that can take registration from just about anybody from anywhere, not just so we don't go through that whole PayPal issues where you don't take registration from Nigeria. So if you can just give us 2 or 3 sites that everybody can just check out, we'll be very
well, if you want to do a campaign, check out Indiegogo, INDIEGOGO. Indiegogo.com will probably allow you to do a donation or perks campaign. So there's no debt or equity. In order to do debt or equity, we need to work with your securities regulators. If that is something you want to do, and you've got connections to security regulators, feel free to email me. My email address, I'll give it right now because I'm very transparent, is Sherwood, SHERWOOD. So if you know the forest in the United Kingdom called Sherwood Forest, that's what I'm named after. And it's at the CCA Group. So CCA stands for Crowdfund Capital Advisors. So the CCA Group.com. And let's see if we can get debt or equity crowdfunding up and running. Again, the resources for education, we've got Success with Crowdfunding, which is an online one. So just think of success with crowdfunding. And Kiva, I know you're probably familiar with Kiva, is expanding their horizons in this too. So you might want to check out Kiva, I think kiva.com or org.
Thank you very much, Woody, on behalf of the U.S. Embassy and all the entrepreneurs here. We really appreciate that you took the time to talk to us, answer our questions, and provide an amazing narrative about what's been happening with crowdfunding. And I think the people here are going to take it very far. So all the best to you, and thank you so much. An applause.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you later on. Bye.
Okay, I think we have about 15 more minutes. No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I know you had to go. And I know we might not have got to the questions, but I'll turn the microphone over to you now, okay, to keep on. Thank you.
All right. You can still ask a few questions around crowdsourcing, around technology incubation, around technology businesses. CCA group. CCA group. On the issue, I'll add a few bits to almost everybody's question. For the Mr. there that asked about how do you show that your idea really it's not really about money, but you also need people to also invest in it. I can give you a few examples of businesses in Nigeria who have run similar things, and they were able to get, based on what he said, they were able to get a few people to also invest in their business, and also a few angles where you can also pitch your business to. One, there's an organization called Seed Star Group, Seed Star Worldwide, and they hold events in every city across the world looking for the newest business or newest startups that people can invest their money in. And these startups go beyond for profit and not for profit. And so the beginning of every year, you have to go to Geneva to pitch to a whole group of billionaires and millionaires across Europe. In Nigeria last year, a young man named Simeon Ononobi won, and he runs Simple Pay for You. Simple Pay is a payment gateway where you can pay just about anybody from anywhere. And I think one of their biggest, one of PayPal's biggest competition now is Simple Pay for Nigeria. And Simple Pay got to realize that even the other problem they were able to solve, instead of just solving the problem of payment, was the problem of fraud. So they devised a very simple means where if I don't approve the payment, the payment doesn't go. So the payment might leave if you steal my card and use it and swipe it anywhere. Here in Nigeria, you have to type pins, but some other places you could just swipe cards and get paid. So they made it in such a way that if I don't approve it via SMS or something, it doesn't get paid. So the money just leaves my account, but it gets hanging somewhere. So the company that swiped the card doesn't get paid. So they either have to track you back or find how to get you to either return what you have. But then he was able to solve that issue of fraud. And if he tells you the kind of figures of fraud that he gets from outside Nigeria alone, you'll be so shocked. Not by Nigerians, but outside Nigeria, the kind of fraud he gets it's so amazing what he has been able to stop. And there are also a few organizations like what, maybe because Mr. Michael didn't say what he founded. It's called Instacare, and what he's trying to do is see how they can help support health accessibility via mobile, where the informal sector, that's the places where people like us that are not registered in organizations and all that can access NHIS and HMO can also get access to these things. And you see that the underlying solution also that we were able to solve again was to curb the issue of solving the problems that might lead people to having diseases. So they got to realize that the basic people down the triangle or down the pyramid suffer from basic stuff that just simple hand sanitizer or simple hygiene could have just cured. So you see, first they started with let's help people get access to payment. Then now they are seeing that they can stop fraud. Let's help people get access to health. Now we're seeing that we can also help people sensitize on hygiene. And I think he just came back from like 5 West African countries or something. Yes, sir. You want to use it?
My name is Uche Abams. I wanted to ask how this crowdfunding can affect or how it can impact on strategic planning of for-profit, non-profit organization.
Okay. For your strategic planning, first you have to know that you're not just dealing with only yourself now. Now you're dealing with a group of other people who are going to ask you to the last details what you're doing with your funds. So apart from just waiting on the banks, the banks give you time. We will come check you so time. You can fix your books, you can fix your papers. But these other groups of people can call you up at any time if they are not satisfied with something. And it will also you have to tweak the way at which you're going to plan the execution of your business. So if you're thinking of having to delay with the execution of your business, now you've got a group of people who are waiting on you. Like he said, they are not just freebies. These are not free cash, except if it's for profit. Even for profit is not free cash because you have to be accountable for it. And when you're not being accountable for it, they'll either pull back the fund or, that's why you see some organizations don't dole out the whole funds to you. When they tell you that you've been given like a $25,000 grant, they might break it down into different milestones. Like we do in our incubator, we say if you're funding anybody, first we as an incubator, we break the milestones of the startups. If the first stage for you is we have to create a business or register a business and develop a prototype. So we'll make sure that the first funding you need to register a business prototype is being sourced out for you out of the original fund that you get. Once you achieve that, we know what the next milestone is. The next milestone is we have to enter market or test market with the prototype, and this is what we are expecting. Now, there's something we use that is also shared. Like you said, most of these things come from America, comes from Europe, and it's called the business model canvas. Now, the business model canvas or the Javelin board, you get the likes of Eric Rice, who is pushing the lean startup strategy. You've got Steve Blanks also. You've got Oppenheimer also. Okay, Austin Wilder. And this group of people show you a very simple plan on how you could create a strategy for your business. And it's as simple as just 9 steps. First, you have the value proposition, you have the customer segment, and you have the customer engagement or customer relationship, as you want to call it. You've got the channels of engagement, and you've got your revenue stream. You've got your key activities, you've got your key resources, you've got your key partners, and you've got your cost structure. Now, these things are also divided into 2. You've got the front end, which is where you have to engage with people. If you search online, just go online, it's free. And we don't collect money from people when they come to our hub to share their idea. And we always tell them that, look, we've got tons of ideas that we listen to on a daily basis. And like I said, if you don't want to share it, good luck with that. And so when you come to the hub, we give you this paper. I've got dozens on my table. So when people come in to share my idea, oh, I want to crowdsource funds, or I want to do this, I want to do that. And I say, okay, so can I even learn more about your idea? I give you the business model canvas. Let me see what your strategy is. If your revenue stream is not realistic, then I'm gonna have to tell you to start with. Then we will sit down and see how we can review what your idea is, what your value proposition is, what your customer says, because you need to understand the underlying basics of all these things. Value proposition is just simply what value are you proposing. Now, customer segment is what kind of people am I proposing this value to? What do they do? How do they think? I mean, what channels can I reach them? Are they social mobile people? Are they people like me that just stick to our phones once we don't use our phone for one day? Like now I'm thinking, oh, I can't imagine how many people is calling, texting, or trying to chat me now that I'm not with my phone. But but if you think of the older group, you might be thinking, okay, don't worry, anybody that needs me can always call later. And so these are the kind of things you need to think of. What these specific groups of people, where are they? How do they think? What is their spending pattern? What is their behavioral pattern? Where do they live? What do they relate to on a daily basis? If you have this kind of information, it helps you know how to propose your value to them. It helps you know the channel to propose the value to them. It helps you know how to engage them, and it also helps you know how to get money from them when you propose the value. So when you're with all this kind of simple strategy that everybody shares, that you go to MBA classes and business schools and you spend like 24 months to learn just this simple one-pager thing. Sometimes it's very, very useful to have the practical experience. In our hub, we tell you, if you don't test market, you're as good as dead. So you could have the most brilliant idea. We've got this guy who is in Jos. He's got a fantastic idea, and he said he has tested market. We have seen his users group. We've seen his users list, but then he needs to do more. But then he's got his own issue also around decision making, which is also a very key thing. As an entrepreneur, you must always be on the go. Like now, if you need to test market, test market. The worst thing that can happen is no. And that's the rule we give people. When you go to the market and say, would you like to use my product? The worst anybody can tell you is, no, thank you. And you move on to the next person. So if you use the Javelin board, it shows you different steps of how to even create expected outcomes for this market over 10. So if you say, if I meet 10 people, I expect that 70% will agree to my product. That means 7 over 10. So you go to the market, you just go outside. It can even be outside your office, somewhere down the lobby. Anybody, anywhere, just say, look, I have this idea. Do you think you like to use it? If the person says, I don't think so, that's one down. That means you need 6 more people to find. So sometimes you might get over 70%. Sometimes you might get below 70%. Now, if you get below 70% or even below 50%, then you need to review your strategy again and go test the market. Now, these are the simple ways of having to also show people that, look, this idea that I have is really working. I have tested the market in so ways. I've seen this number of people that want to use my product. Now, that was part of the thing that helped Simeon Onunobi won the 6 star, because when he started the Simple Pay product, he didn't start from our hub, unfortunately. He was able to test the market as quick as possible, and he got merchants willing to use his product. He wanted just you and I, everyday people, to use. But you got to realize that most people that use it are people who even do businesses, not you and I who want to transfer money everywhere. And in a few months, I think now 6 months or 5 months, he got like in 11 months, he got like 400,000 or 40,000, about 400,000 users, 400 million in revenue. But in terms of users, he got a huge number of users. And it's, the last time we spoke to him, we said, why don't you just go all out? Why don't you put the word out there? He said, that's my biggest fear, because I need to build my servers, I need to build my back end to sustain the number of people who will come to use my platform. So people don't come and it gets crashed. I spoke to a few guys. I don't know if you've seen this advert on PayPal, maybe online, or if you watch the Big Brother or you watch Channel O and all that. Now the PayPal guys also face the same problems, which the PayPal guys always gives us their lounge to use for our Hive meetings. And the Hive meetings is where we gather this group of programmers together, and we try to up their skills for free, and we look for projects for them to do. And when we get paid in the project, everybody benefits out of the payments. And so the PayPal guys, they said when the first time they just advertised on Facebook and on Big Brother, their system crashed. I think it crashed about 3 or 4 times, and they had to keep bringing it back up. You bring it back up, it crashes. Bring it back up, it crashes. Now that was the fear that Simeon didn't want to go through. So he keeps trying to deal with everyday user one at a time to see how the load is keep going and what he needs to keep doing. So in terms of a strategic plan, you need to understand how to position your business and push it in a glance. Too much stories these days don't count. We believe in business plan, but we also believe more that it's better to have a business model first before a business plan. So if you come with an idea that you think, which we hear that from lots of entrepreneurs, oh, I've got this brilliant, super idea that I think is a multi-billion-dollar idea. Okay, so how do you know it's a multi-billion-dollar idea? You've never done it. But they tell you, oh, it's a multi-billion-dollar idea. It's going to work. And we tell you, all right, so can I see something? And they give you this huge 60-page document, business plan. How can you give me a business plan for something you've never done? Or something nobody else has ever done? So how do you get your figures? How do you forecast payments? How do you forecast budget? Or how do you forecast expected revenue? It's just not possible. So you need to have a business model so that you can show me where you expect money to come from. Money should come from subscription, should come from sales, should come from adverts. So if you're doing a business where it might not be for profit, or where you don't expect the money to come now, but in your business model revenue, you can show me where you're expecting money to come from. So as an investor, I can tell you whether this is realistic or this is not, right? So I don't know how clear that is, but if you've got any other idea or any other comments or suggestions, you can just ask it. Yes, sir. I know you've been trying to ask a question for a while. Sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe. Yeah. I have some few questions here. The first is the changes in the government policy. Yep. Has for some time been a major problem in developing nations like Nigeria. Yep. So what happens if government policy changes so that it does not support the cash crowdfunding rules? What happens to investors? You have already invested your money, and the policy changes to negate cash, the crowdfunding rule. Again, I want to find out how sustainable is the internet backbone itself. Okay, since the whole business relies on the internet. Okay. I also want to find out when the entrepreneurship or entrepreneur fails to deliver, how does the investor pulls back his money, his or her money? When and how does he pull back his money? Okay. All right. So I'm going to start with the first one. What if government policy don't support crowdfunding or startups and all that? I don't think there will be any government in the world right now that will not focus on small businesses and startups. If you go to German economy, the backbone of the economy is mainly for startups. Even for the American economy, almost every big economy that you find anywhere, the backbone of the economy are startups. The ability to source business is coming up every day, gives your opportunity for cash flows to move around. So if more people are starting more businesses, no matter how long they stay and how long they crash, as long as more businesses keep coming every day, every week, every month, it helps the company also. Sorry, it helps the economy live longer. So I think we have organizations like Sweden who are really working very hard to see how this can work. You see organizations like NITDA, that's the Information Technology Development Agency, who are also thinking of how technology startups can be sustainable. You've got the World Bank coming to help us with funding here and there. You've got the UWIN from Ministry of Finance and all. These are policies to see how they can support startups. And more startup communities are seeing how they can help to influence policies. Like, for example, we just founded an organization called Nigerian Incubators and Innovators Network. And part of what we come to understand is that what is the incentives for businesses that come through incubators? What is the incentives that innovators get? Now, we can push policies on behalf of other incubators to talk to people like MBTI, to talk to NITDA, to talk to SMID, and to talk to Ministry of Finance, to talk to just about any organization to see the kind of policies that is favorable for startups and it's also favorable for investors. Now, I cannot assure you that investors will get their money back. Definitely. It is pure risk. We've seen organizations, even in America, even in Europe, who come out with the best pitches, the best business plans and all that. And once they get funded, they go down 6 months, 7 months, boom. It is just risk. Sometimes they stay 5 years, sometimes they stay 10 years. It is pure risk. So investors know already. That is why they will grill you to the nitty-gritty, so that they'll be sure that every dime or every kobo that they put into your business yields something for them. If it doesn't yield them cash, it might yield them public value or some form of sentimental value that will help you to do this. Some might just say it's based on impact. I'm trying to help the startup live, right? And the issue of internet backbone, I don't think the internet will crash. Because, I don't know what the guys in CERN are doing. CERN is Center for, I can't really remember the full name now, but they are the guys who came up with internet. And I bet they are not sleeping with the kind of crazy things they want to do. Now we hear that there's supposed to be internet, is it 3.0 or 4.0 or something? And we heard it's going to be crazier than the one we have now. So if what we think is just a little internet connectivity that is hooking here and there is so much happening at the background. I think there's an archive site where if you're looking for anything that has been posted on the internet, I can't remember the site now, but in one of my special classes that I attended, one of the facilitators showed us. You can find anything anybody has posted on the internet. It has been archived somewhere. So as that site is doing that, another site is doing that, and so you've got server farms. This thing they call clouds everywhere. It's not actually the white cloud. But because some people keep asking me, but do you think this white thing is going to store information? But then we keep telling people, no, they are just server farms in different places. All right. So let me just take this one question.
Okay. I just wanted to know your incubator. How does it work, and what is in it for you? Because it's very important.
Okay, my incubator, or rather our incubator, works like every other incubator across the world. One, yes, we've got some level of sustainable funding that keeps us afloat, but then the impact for us also counts. We could get the impact, we could get paid via impact, depending on the services that we're bringing out to you. And sometimes we take percentage out of your business when you can't pay for the services. 5% across the world is standard practice. 5%, and it's also it's Bible. You can buy it back.
So you start, you don't have an office, you don't have any strategy, you don't have this, you don't have that. We take you through all that process, get you a very nice cubicle, small office space, or even because most startups think they need a huge window side office space. Who wouldn't like a window side? But sometimes what you need is just a desk and a table. So we get you through that process, get you internet, get you linkages, get support some way. We don't have finance, but we look for people who's got finance. We know in Lagos they've got the Lagos Angels Network, and we're trying to set up the Abuja Angels Network, which we want to call the Rock Fund, and we're really working tirelessly to make that happen. And so in this Rock Fund also, you see investors alike who want to invest in your business.
And they will also want to take a bite.
Definitely. Definitely. They won't take a bite, but then we will give you advisory on how to also warehouse your shares, so you don't just get all cycles. Someone says, "Oh, I want to put $10,000 in your business," I say, "Look, I'll give you 50%." Exactly. So you need to also be smart about it. So you start your business first, maybe with like 50% for you and your other team members. And we're also very particular about collaboration. If you come alone, we possibly won't allow you to start that business alone. Because whatever you think you're good at, there's somebody better than you. So we look at your core skills. If you're good at programming or setting up or business development, we look for somebody else in terms of operation that can handle operations properly. So you don't go all out selling business and the business cannot deliver what you sold. Or you go all out building this very fantastic platform that people can use. And I'm just laughing because there's this guy we met in Jos, and he's got this fantastic platform. He could turn plastic back to petrol. But the thing is, if you ask him, he can't even speak proper English. And when I mean proper English, I don't mean English. He keeps giving you chemistry terms and industrial chemistry terms and scientific terms. Even me, I get lost in the middle. And I'm like, dude, I don't understand what you're saying, man. Just speak English, man. And he keeps saying, oh, you go through this platform to that. I said, look, bros, all I'm asking is, are you ready to part with money or shares in this business while somebody's ready to invest? That's just basic. So you see, those things also count. If you're good with programming, we will find someone who's good in business to also work with you. And we're about to start this founders dating thing. Well, we are just trying to adopt the same speed dating format where founders come together, special skills people that like to work with startups also come together. And we're trying to see how we can do a shared resource platform where, say, someone stands, if I'm good at operations now, I can also service 3 startups. Instead of 1 startup taking the cost of my services, 3 startups can come together. Then they will share the cost of my services while I just look at all what they're doing and see how it works. So there's lots of opportunity for startups. If you want to know where our hub is, you come to number 2 Zambezi Crescent, 3rd floor. It's NEBZA building. NEBZA is Nigerian Export Processing Zones Authority. I always get confused on those things. Nigerian Export Processing Zones Authority, behind Merit House. Yeah, so I'm sure some of our members are here already. Yeah, we've got this group of guys who created a disaster application, a disaster management platform, where if there's any disaster happening anywhere, you can just log it and just pass the information, even if you're not there. So whichever agency that is close by, they will show you which is the nearest safe haven for you to go. So they are moving from a desktop now to a mobile, because again, mobile is key in Nigeria. If you're doing any application or any technology business that mobile cannot use, you're good as, I don't know, 1980 or something.
Do you have a website?
Yeah, we do. Inspire.org.ng. Sorry, Inspire with an E. Inspire, if you want to call it. Inspire, E-N instead of I-N. E-N, inspire.org.ng. Or you could just, maybe after this, I'll just share my email. You can just send me an email.